Hi guys, my name is Natel Harris. I am a senior here at Valdosta State University and I am graduating this spring 2019. This video is for my ESOL 4030 class. It is for the purpose of teaching preschoolers about the environment. I would like to add a disclaimer. My disclaimer is I am taking this ESOL class, but not necessarily planning on becoming an ESOL teacher. I have been modifying the content of this class to better teach my preschoolers sign language. I am currently teaching sign language at a preschool here in Valdosta, and I have over 300 students, I believe. I teach from 4 months old until my regular preschoolers end at the age 4 and 4.5 years. But I also teach the after school program, which is from all the way up to K5. I am I have modified this lesson to better assess the needs for my preschoolers as well as my preschoolers who do not have English speaking parents at home. There are quite a few at my preschool who have parents that are from other countries who speak enough English to get by, but they do not speak English as often as they would at home as they do their first language. Just a uh, few important things to discuss first. I will be saying ELL a lot. This is English Language Learners. And in this case, these are my signing students. They are learning new signs. They are learning American signs for objects that they may encounter in their personal environments, and maybe at home or when they're out with their families, and as well as at school. We will discuss many topics that deal with locations today. As far as ELLs, I do have a few ELLs. They are English language learners. However, they have not started school yet, like official grade school. So they are pre-ELLs for me. I My students can already are speaking English for the most part. They are learning Spanish at school, and I am also their sign language teacher. I teach them signs, so they also know English and they also know Spanish. I also speak Spanish as I am a Spanish major here at VSU. Um, I use Spanish for the students who need help and for the students who speak Spanish at home. I use Spanish as support for my sign language because if they already have the concept in English and Spanish, I can transfer that knowledge to their signing understanding of what the concept is. And this is one thing that is important because if a student does know how to do something or how to say something in one language and they have a background in that language, it is easier to transfer that knowledge to what would be their L2 or their second language or their L3 possibly if they don't speak English at home. So sometimes, for instance, I have a student who is of Korean background. She is very young. I am not going to give any personal details, but she's of Korean background. Her parents speak Korean at home. At school, she speaks English. She is also learning Spanish, and I am also teaching her sign language. And at her age, I'm not going to specify how old, but at her age, she is managing four languages, and this is before she starts school. So I am very impressed with my students. I am very proud of every single student I teach. Each student has made progress since I've started teaching there 9 months ago. I am trying to begin teaching full lessons. They receive full lessons at their preschool, um, but I'm trying to begin teaching full content heavy, language heavy lessons for the groups that can handle it. Um, a little bit more information about my students. Their preschool. Their preschool is pretty cool in my opinion. It is better than a preschool I went to. I love my preschool, but this is an amazing program. The preschool itself actually prides itself on its language abilities and accessibility. Um, the teachers Most of the teachers are there with the students all day. They are there from 7 a.m. until 5:30 p.m. When I teach sign language, I am only there for 3 hours, and I have to go to every single classroom at least once a week. So I spend as much time as I can with each student, but it is extremely difficult when there's only one teacher and the amount of students that are there. I want to be able to change my class time into being more productive. One thing I like to say about this preschool is they use Georgia curriculum about what a student needs to be prepared for their entry into the education system. They use the Georgia curriculum. Well, they use Georgia guidelines and local curriculum for preparing the future students of Georgia and wherever they may live after they leave the preschool, just preparing them for the next transition so that they can be successful for their lives as in at least language and being able to understand what is being taught to them. Okay, so I'm going to get started. I am going to first off list the components of the SIOP model. The SIOP model is a sheltered instructional method for teaching English language learners, or ELLs, and in my case, pre-ELLs, teaching them the content that we want to teach without diminishing the language that needs to be held for that level of student. First, we have to have like a lesson prep, and this video I will explain the preparation I went through. I went through to prepare this lesson. Okay, and also we need interaction. This is interaction between the students and the teacher, not leaving the students when they need help, making sure the students understand that they can ask for help. And this concept alone is very important to me. I teach all of my students to always ask for help. And this is something that I am very happy to be teaching in preschool, because if you teach it in preschool, it will go with them throughout their lives. And I know I have a hard time now asking for help in just regular life things that I need, but sometimes I'm able to do it. So I know I have a hard time with this, because my problem is I don't like asking for help, but sometimes you have to move your pride aside and remember that the goal is to learn, not necessarily to be perfect. Okay. Also, we are building background. For this lesson, I will be building background for the students to understand and learn what's in the world around them. Not necessarily me, which is typically what preschoolers are thinking about, which is themselves versus the information that they can learn about their environment and just be aware of as they grow up. Because who remembers riding in a car, or being in a car and you're riding through the countryside and you see horses and you're like, oh my gosh, horses. And I know it's kind of crazy, because it's funny, because we all when we see horses is out of place for not we all, but for many of us. Horses are out of place for us, especially if we grow up in a city. So I want my students to understand what's the difference of living in a city versus what's the difference of living in the countryside. There's nothing wrong with either or. They both have pros and cons, but they also both have different aspects, and they also have a lot of similarities. This is what I would like to focus on with this lesson. Um, After building background, I will be practicing and applying the information with my students. And continuing on, I will make sure that I am giving them comprehensible input. That is, I am saying it in a way that they understand, in a way that matches their current vocabulary levels, but without forgetting to move them up to the next level of teaching more difficult words using vocabulary they already understand. Then the sixth part of the PSYOP components is lesson delivery. That would be me actually teaching the information, which I will get into later on. And then seven would be the strategies used to teach the information. And the final and eighth component is review and assessment. And in the eighth component, we will review the types of vocabulary. We are not going to necessarily go through each and every single vocabulary word we've learned today, because during the sign language lessons, we go through a lot of vocabulary, a lot of vocabulary. It can be too much at times. And if it is, my students let me know. And if they're ready to move on and learn more, I can sense it. And my goal is to be able to help start quenching this thirst for knowledge that they have. And at this age, they're very curious about everything they encounter. They're very energetic, they're fun. And part of this aspect is I would love to incorporate into all of my lessons applying fun to learning. That is my ideal way of teaching. Currently, I apply fun to my content of teaching by doing stuff that the kids want to do. For example, when I come in, they call me Miss Mateau. For some of them, they can't pronounce Nato, so they'll say Miss, and then they'll put an M sound, Mateau, instead of Miss Nato. I do have some that can say my name, but I generally answer to Miss Mateau when I'm at work. So when I get to work and I'm ready to teach my students whatever lesson I have for that day, they're like, Miss Mateau, are you coming outside with us? And I'm like, well, I have to be with you. I have to teach you. So, yes, I guess I'm coming outside with you. So, I am big stuff on the playground at the preschool I teach at. I love it. I love going outside with my students, and I'm probably, not to brag or anything, I'm probably their favorite teacher for this reason alone. I'll go outside with them, but while I'm outside, because I'm teaching them sign language, we can play games. We're already outside. We can play. My favorite game is like racing games. I love doing competitive things because the kids are more engaged when we compete. No one likes to lose. So I also teach them that I love incorporating also life lessons. So I also teach them that it's okay to lose. You're not going to remember this race in 10 years. It's okay to lose, but it's okay to win also. So for one of my favorite games I like to do is red light, green light. So to do red light, green light, you have all of the students line up against the fence or at wherever the starting line is. They line up, and sometimes we can have between 6 and maybe 15 kids in line ready to race. And that's what's so exciting, because you never know how many are going to react to what type of game. So you have to try different methods. So in this lining up method, I have all of the kids practice their signs with me, because red light, green light, we need to know what each color means. So we have red, which means stop. We have yellow, which means slow. But you have to do slow all the way up the arm, or it's about to the elbow, but you have to move it slow. You have to teach them that. And for green, and given that I've been with them for 9 months, they know their basic numbers, their basic colors. Green means go. So when I start the game, I say ready, and then they all have to sign. They're lined up. They all have to sign ready. And I say set. They say set. And I say red. And they're like, red means stop. So they're telling me that red means stop. So they can't go anywhere. They're still lined up at the starting line. And I'm like, what does this mean? And then they'll respond to me slow. I'm like, okay. So they start moving off the starting point, and they're going slow. And I'm like, okay, green. And they're like, go. And I'm like, go. So then they start racing, and the smiles that I see on their faces when they don't realize that they're learning, but they're having fun at the same time of picking up more information. That is the kind of feeling I want to bring into each and every lesson. I know every lesson can't be fun, but I can at least try. Okay, so getting started, we need to discuss warming up. For me, because this is sign language, it is very interactive. I have to watch my students while they learn the information. I have to help them if they do a sign incorrectly. I can help them to get as close to the correct sign as possible. I don't have to have them to do it perfectly, because maybe this is mommy and this is daddy, but maybe they only say mommy, but they know this is mommy. They know mom is below the ear because this is girl. Girls are right here because back in the old days when they were creating languages and things, girls were wearing bonnets. So this is actually the trace of the thumb from the ear to the chin, which is girl because of the bonnet. And then man happens right here, and well, man is right here, and father happens right here because these are masculine, these are for boys, which is what this looks like is grabbing a hat. Typically, the boys were putting on hats for military reasons or whatever reasons, and the girls were wearing bonnets. So if a student can tell me the difference between these two, even though it's not this, I will accept it. I will accept it. In the future, they will pick up the differences, but right now, we're working on building that vocabulary. I have a 5-month-old who can sign mommy, milk, and more, and food, please. 5 months old. And they can't do it perfectly, but it's close enough to the signs that we understand. And my goal is to be able to help the younger students who do not have all of their spoken vocabulary yet, who do not have that, but they understand the concept and they want to communicate with their parents. All I want to do is just help facilitate that. And also, I want to help prepare them for maybe one day they will meet a deaf person. Maybe one day they will have the opportunity to learn more sign language. I just want to set the foundation so that they can build from there. Okay, getting started, finally. All right, so first, we have to warm up. And how do we warm up in sign language? Well, I'm glad you asked. Okay, so first, let's shake out our hands. This isn't really anything you have to do. Let's shake them out. Spirit fingers, shake them out, clap in a circle. It doesn't matter. You don't have to do that, but I love doing this with my kids because this looks exciting to them. I don't know what it is, but it looks exciting to them, just shaking out their hands. It looks weird on camera, but it is kind of cool because when they shake out their hands, they're like, okay, I'm moving my hands. When I work with my babies, like the smaller ones who can't walk yet, I intentionally move their arms up and down so that they can get used to the movement of feeling the intentional movement of their hands. They don't know what's going on, but later on, when they're in one of my older classes, they know, oh, my arm can move, and they aren't thinking about it as much as they would the first time they saw someone sign fine, or the first time they sign father or mother. The first time they see the different areas of where their arms are won't be the first time they're thinking about it. Okay, so we shake out our hands, and now that we're getting started, I tell my students voices off. That means there's no talking. But what if you need help? What if you are trying to get my attention? And what if you need me to repeat something? Okay, all of my students' first vocabularies were a few signs. Okay, so first, if you need help, you say help. You say help. If you do this, I am actively watching all of my students. If you do this for long enough, I will see you need help. So when I see you need help, I will stop and I will say, hold on. So this is hold on. It's just like you're grabbing something and holding it in the air. You're holding on to it. So hold on. And this is what I would say to the class. Hold on. Point to whoever needs help. And I say, they need help. And my favorite thing is using students to teach students. I know that for me, that has helped me personally improve my knowledge of whatever class. Is if I had a question about something, but one of my peers knew the answer, my help would come from someone who understood the information from a student's perspective. A lot of times, many teachers forget that, oh, this isn't common knowledge for everyone, and this isn't easy for everyone to understand. So one of the important things is we have to ask our peers for help. And this is why asking for help is so important. Because what if my peer knows the answer and I'm too shy to ask the teacher? What if I just say help? I don't know what that is. In my classes, in every single class, if a student says help, some other student knows the sign that the first student is asking for help for. For example, I have I'll say my 4-year-olds. That's the class I'm pretty much focusing on right now for this kind of content. My 4-year-olds, they are the best at asking help. And again, this is another sign. They're awesome at telling me to hold on until their peer tells them the answer. And then if their peer does not know the answer, if no one in the class knows the answer, the whole class has to say help. This is, again, me teaching it is okay to ask for help. There is nothing wrong with asking for help. So I would, if the sign is teacher, and the kids know that this means this is a person. How do we do teacher? And no one knows the answer, then all of the kids are saying help. Okay, so now I will come in and I'll say, okay, well, you know that this makes it a person. This is the verb you're looking for. So to add this to this would be a teacher. And in this case, I'm your teacher. So I would use the sign in a sentence in order to be able to give some kind of content for my students to understand. And all of this was really important background knowledge in order to be able to understand the way I will be teaching this lesson. Okay, so today, our topic is talking about the environment. So our topic is talking about the environment. And the lesson's topic is, where can I find what in the world? And the what is basically a blank. I have left this as the top lesson topic because when students are looking for maybe, I don't know, a tiger, they know the tiger doesn't live in a city. And, well, they may not now know that, but at the end of this lesson, that is one of the things that they will know. They will be able to identify where things are located. Okay, so the goal of this lesson is to increase knowledge of ecosystems and vocabulary for those ecosystems and features in sign language. Okay, so our language objective for today, well, our language objectives include students will compare life in the rural areas to life in the urban areas based on each environment's features. Also, students will defend their positions on the best place to find specific environmental features in the world. And students will draft pictures of their ideal living environment. Our content goals for today include students will identify students will identify attributes of each environment described and show related sign language vocabulary when applicable. Students will be able to draw conclusions about how to find things in urban areas and what can be seen in rural areas, as well as the types of animals in the environments that are the listed ecosystems. Okay, for our learning strategies, we first will ask the students about each environment as well as to see what do they know. Okay, so first, my question for my students is, what's outside? That is just a question. It is open-ended and has many options. This right here, I will take about 2 minutes for, and I will let students respond to what they think is outside. Typically, the answers to this question will probably be surface level and discuss trees, sun. If it's raining, it'll say they will probably say rain. They'll say the parking lot. They will point out things that they've seen outside. And then from their responses, I plan to build their background knowledge of what's outside. And this is where I would begin discussing ecosystems. So today we will be discussing ecosystems. I love to spell because my students are still learning their letters. They're still learning all of this stuff that they need to know before they go to school. So with the letters they do know, they know them in sign language. E, this is E, C, O, S, Y, S, T, E, M. And in my 4-year-old class, pretty much every 4-year-old can spell that word. So what's an ecosystem? And I will let them respond to what they think it is. But typically for this kind of question, they won't know. They will not know the answer to this kind of question because the ecosystem is a new word and it's a big word. But it is a word that describes things that they already know. Okay, so starting with the fact that there are 6 ecosystems that I would like to discuss. There are 6 major ecosystems in the world. These ecosystems are, and this is when I would incorporate more sign language. I will incorporate it throughout this video because it is important to use sign language when teaching sign language. For my kids, they are not as advanced as someone who would be studying sign language, obviously. So I will start modeling the types of signs and way to sign things. So first, you start with your thumb, the number 1, well, this isn't the number one, this is the number one, but when making a list, you can make a list up to 9 things, technically 10 on one hand. And for some items, you can go past that, but for now, we'll just focus on the first few. Okay, so first, we have the rainforest, then we have grasslands, then there's the desert, then there's the Arctic tundra. Fifth, we have fresh water, and this is the number for 6. 6 is marine, the marine ecosystem. Okay, so first, rainforest. How do we sign rainforest? You need help? That's fine. This is rain. Like you can see the water coming down depending on how hard it's raining. In rainforests, they receive large amounts of water from the sky during the year. That's why we have rain forest. And this right here by itself is the sign for tree. Like this is the tree and these are the leaves. Okay? So here's our tree. These are a bunch of trees, a grove per se. And in the rainforest, there are many trees. So rain, forest, and that's how you sign that one. And in the rainforest, it rains a lot. There are a lot of trees, and the trees go so tall because of the water that comes from the rain and the sun. They grow so tall that it is very dark on the floor of the rainforest. Okay, so now we have grasslands. This is the sign for grass. It's your hand going under your chin and brushing up, grass. For grassland, Grassland, grassland. Sorry, I had to respell that comfortably. Grassland would be grass, and you take these two, you take your number 1 and your thumb, and you on both sides, and it's like you're pinching, but not all the way. You have about this much space between them, and you go like this, and you go out and around. And that's because this is the grass area that stretches as far as the eye can see. And then, keeping that same concept, we have our desert. Our grassland has grass that goes for forever, and they have tall grass because there isn't necessarily someone to cut the grass. And this is where certain animals like rats and mice and field mice and snakes live. Third, we have desert. The desert is dry plains. So we have our desert, which goes from, it is a dry area that goes as far as the eye can see as well. Now we have this one right here, number 4, our tundra. Tundra, 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 which is like Antarctica, the South Pole, the North Pole, is covered with ice, and that's where the penguins live, and the polar bears, and Santa. And so I would use that kind of vocabulary to teach this kind of concept, basically. For tundra is pretty frozen. It is pretty much ice everywhere. Not much grows there because not much can survive there. Okay, so now we're going to another one. We have fresh water. Fresh, this is also the sign for new, like brand new. So fresh water, because there is this, the only other way to sign fresh is Fresh. And that way I can teach them the word as well as the concept. Fresh means Fresh, and that means it's new. So freshwater, that is an environment that does not have, it is a water-based environment that does not have salt in the water. And this is more so where fish like salmon swim upstream and everything. Okay, so number 6, the last category for our ecosystems that we're going to be discussing today is the marine area. marine, marine, marine. And that is water-based area that does have salt. So it's basically salt water. This is where we have our large bodies of water, which make up the largest percentage of the Earth's types of ecosystems. Um, Continuing on, I will now discuss animals that live in each type of environment. Okay, and this is a pre-made list that I have for this subject. This list was created to be able to help students to connect what types of animals live where. And this is something that they will not learn until later on when they think about stuff. So, like mentioning the field mice for the grassland, I would say, so basically that said, do you know what lives in the grasslands? And it also included just two types of animals that live there. And those two types was the mouse, the field mouse, and the snake. So both the field mouse and the snake live in the grassland. But what other animals do we need to know? Well, let's discuss this vocabulary. Okay, first we have birds. Then we have fish. We have cows, giraffes, elephants, zebras, lions, tigers, hippos, alligators, bears, and polar bears, panda bears, owls, goats, dinosaurs. As preschoolers, you have to include dinosaurs. And preschoolers love dinosaurs. This is one of my favorite signs because I like to mess with the kids and then say, roar, and eat at them because sign language is very visual. I like to use signs that move closer to them, especially for animals like spiders. It's not an animal, but spider looks like it's crawling, and the kids they like to jump because they maybe get afraid, but because it looks real. And when things look real, it helps them to make connections to the real life version of these signs. So to be able to connect my signs to what they see on the outside is something I work on during every class. So we have spiders, we have horse, and we have unicorn, which is an R right here on the head for basically to show their horn. Using these animals that we just learned, I have written the names of each ecosystem, and I want you guys to do your best to separate the animals and also plants. This is cactus. I want you to separate them into where you believe they belong in these categories. So to do this part of the lesson, you write each of the categories on the board. We have right here, we have rainforest, grassland, desert, tundra, freshwater, and marine. And I would tell the students to draw the 6 lines going down. Well, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 lines going down and 1 going across. And at the top of each column to use to write the same categories that are on the board. And then when they write the same categories, I would tell them to either write or draw the name of the animal that belongs in that category. And some animals do not only live in one category, well, in one ecosystem, so you would put them in wherever they belong. Okay, continuing on, I will discuss people. So now that we are done discussing animals, now we'll discuss people. Where do people live? Well, and in this kind of response, I'm only looking for two options. And the first option is cities. This is like the different rooftops of the houses that are in the area. And in the countryside, this is a Y going around the elbow, circling around the elbow. There are 7 billion people here on Earth, and that is a lot of people who use things and create trash. So the people use things and then create trash, and what do they do after that? They throw it away. They throw the trash away. So when they throw the trash away, they should do a few things first to protect our environment. Protect is 2 S's, and they make an X with at the wrist. So protect our environment. They will have to do 3 things. And these are 3 very important things that you guys should remember. First, they create the trash, of course, but when throwing the trash out, they should be able to determine if they can reuse it, reduce the amount of trash they use, or recycle whatever it is that they're throwing away before throwing it away. And this will protect the environment from people putting trash that ends up in the marine ecosystem that may hurt a sea turtle or baby Nemo. So, continuing on, we will discuss attributes of the 2 types of places that people live. The city is first. Okay, so now let's talk about places in a city. What's in a city? And I love starting out my topics by asking, what do my children already know? What do my students already know? Do they know what's in the city? Maybe they'll say bus station or public train or post office, school, stores, the mall, food store, work, hair salon, park, home, and bank. These are just a few of the locations that are in cities. So we have our BUS station. We have our public train, our post office, school, shopping stores, and this can be the mall, which is MALL. We have our food stores. We have work. Most of my students, their parents work in the city, so they say they learned the sign for work, which is work. It depends on what their parents do, but this is the general sign for work. So we have that. We have hair salons, We have the park, P-A-R-K, park. We have home, just if that's where their home is. And we have bank, which is B-A-N-K, but in sign language, it's shortened to bank, B-N-K, bank. These are the locations that we have in the city, but one adjective I would use to describe the relation between the two things is close. So maybe the bank is close to the park. So close. Okay, so now we need to know what's in the countryside. This is countryside again. And many countrysides have farms, which goes from this side to this side. They have farms that have a lot of grassland area, as far as the eye can see. And who eats that grass? Yes, the cows, the horses. But also on these farms, we have different animals like chickens. Yeah. And we have other animals on farms, and there is a video that I would show to. It's on YouTube that has it's a sing song for signs of farm animals. We have also the sign for factories, which are in the countryside for the most part. There are a lot of factories in the city, but there are factories in the countryside that create things like the tractors, Tractor, like the tractors that my students' parents may have or that the students have seen. And one adjective I would use to describe things in in relation to their location for the countryside would be far. So I would say this is close and this is far. If you can see the difference between where they are. Also, we have a R for restaurant. There are restaurants in the city, but there are restaurants on the countryside also. So this is one of the signs that falls into the both category, that is both in the city and both in the countryside. Okay, now I will read the story while you all draw. I want to see your pictures afterwards, so make the drawing as clear as possible. And I will read the story 3 times. The first time, you can't draw. The first time, you are listening and watching for important signs. And the second time, you may begin drawing, but you don't have to. But all I want you to do is your best and you to draw the picture now, and we can color it in a little while when everyone's done. You will have 5 minutes after reading the story for the third time to finish your drawings. And after that, you will turn in your pictures, and I will let you know how accurate you have been with your pictures. Okay, ready? Here's the first time. My name is, I live in, that is a city only 30 minutes away from the beach. This is the sign for beach. This is the water crashing up from the waves up onto the sand. In the forest behind my house, I can hear owls at nighttime. Forest, owls. And you already know night. My best friend is Nancy, who lives next door. Between our houses is an orange tree. When we get home from school, The bus stops in front of the orange tree. We like to pretend that we are animals when we play outside. I like to be a dinosaur. Roar. Nancy, she likes to be an alligator. When my dad gets home, he stops at the mailbox. And sometimes he sends letters to the post office. My mailbox is between the path that you walk on to get to my front door and the driveway. While Dad relaxes, Mom and I go to the store, the grocery store. Okay, so that was the first time of me reading this story. I am not going to read it the other two times as this is just for the lesson, but I am going to also state that I will read it 2 more times. But after the first time, I would ask comprehension questions like, where is the orange tree in relation to both of their houses? And I would ask other comprehension questions, and they would show me the signs for in between, in front, or behind. So what's behind Todd, Todd, Todd's house? What's behind it? And the correct response would be the forest. This wouldn't necessarily be writing in a form, but and to me, this is expression, which is the same. It contributes to the same thing as writing. It does not require pencil and paper, but it is important because the students know what this is versus how to spell forest. Well, the forest would be on the board from earlier, but they would know what it looks like, which is a whole bunch of trees, versus how to spell it first. This would be important because I am testing not only their English skills, but their signing skills. And my focus is mainly on the signing and acquisition of the vocabulary important for the topic. So after the third time of reading the story, I would give them about 5 to 10 minutes, depending on how much they need, to make their pictures as accurate to where things are located in the story. I am not testing for everything. I just want to see how much they understand, and that would be what my assessment is. How much can they create the picture that I drew for them with my signs and my words? And I would see if they could use the materials we have, such as the American Sign Language dictionary for signs, the construction paper with different colors from yellow, blue, green, black, brown, and gray. Scissors, safety scissors, of course, they are preschoolers, glue, crayons, color pencils, markers, and I would see if they could use all of that stuff and put it together to make it as accurate as possible of a description and picture as they can, given the information. Doing this kind of lesson would require a certain amount of patience that not everyone would have, and especially if they don't know sign language. Learning sign language requires patience. Therefore, teaching sign language requires more. But teaching sign language after you've already been learning it shows you how to slow down and adjust to the pace of your consumers.